Hello, hello, hello. Uh, Tremendous week. Tonight we counted the 10th day for the Omer, and I think it probably bears to talk a little bit about that, um, and that is the Omer is an offering that that is made up of barley. Barley is um, it's considered to be an animal's fodder. I mean, it's animal feed. It's not. It's not people's feed. Wheat is, and it is something which is being given, being offered by um, a person who cannot afford anything. The kind of mincha that a person's supposed to bring, a korban person is supposed to bring is usually it's a lamb, or if you cannot afford a lamb, then they bring a dove, a pigeon, and a person who cannot afford anything it's called dale dolos, poor should be poor. It's it's he brings barley, and not only that, but the uh, the offering of barley is in and on itself the only offering that can can be offered, broken apart, and half of it be brought. I mean, we have the crackers of Kohen Gadol, Chavite Kohen Gadol, that I brought, part um, in the morning and part in the afternoon. Um, just 1 second. But minchas oni is something that is it can be broken apart, and half of it can be brought, which is something which is unparalleled. There's no other korban, no other offering that can be brought half. And the entire sphere Omer is um, a zecher to that particular offering, an offering of Omer, of mincha of barley, or the cheapest grain there is, and the alluding to minchas choite, b'dalei dalas, like the most impoverished of them all is the great secret that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has shared with Moshe Rabbeinu when Am Yisrael were on the sea, just before the sea split. That Moshe Rabbeinu has called out to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, "Why do you call unto me? This particular matter is dependent on a much higher level of hierarchy, of atiko, That's the Keser. It's not the usual, Zeranpin and Malchus that we are usually dealing with. When we spoke about that particular secret, that the Kadosh Baruch Hu hasn't even revealed to Adam Arishan. Some opinions say that to Avram Avinu. And some there says that it was hinted to Avram Avinu. It wasn't actually said to him, but it was hinted to him. And that was revealed to Moshe Rabbeinu. That is the secret that Arizal is revealed, and as a result of revealing that particular secret, Lo Aleinu, he lost his son. Even though obviously it was Kadosh Baruch Hu's will that he will really reveal it. And what it comes to tell us is, as we will see as we continue with the story, is that even when you find yourself at the lowest possible situation, as low as it can possibly be, the Rahmanas HaKadosh Baruch Hu never leaves you. When you're connected to the tzaddik, with the koach of the tzaddik, you can get from anywhere, from nowhere, to everywhere. So let's take a quick look here and see what the chacham, what the clever one did. It says wait until the morning. It says there's no king. He convinced the messenger that came to him that there is no king. And he's going and he's finding a soldier and says, who do you serve? He says, the king. He says, have you seen him? No. So, you see, here's a proof that there is no king. Why is that a proof? Because that is his mindset, that there is no king. Therefore, any information that he will get will solidify his conviction that there is no king. You go to a captain, who do you serve? Says the king. Have you ever seen his own eyes? He says, no. He says, well, you see, it's another proof. There is no king. And people get together. And now it says there's no king in the world at all. And they agree to themselves, among themselves, there's no king at all. It's like people are asking, let's find out what does, I don't know, some kind of famous person say about Kadosh Baruch Hu. What does he care? What do we care? What this famous person says about Kadosh Baruch Hu. What do we care? Does anybody say about Kadosh Baruch Hu? Say what the tzadikim tell us. It's very much like hearing movie stars give their opinions about politics and stuff. I mean, who cares what they think? I mean, what qualification do they have to say what they think? Because they're famous, because they can act. What kind of shtus is that? But nevertheless, everybody agreed among themselves, there is no king at all. Now the clever one spoke up and said further, come, let's go and travel the world and continue to show the whole world is greatly mistaken. And they went traveling the world, and everywhere they went, they found the world in error. The king, quote unquote, became an analogy for them. Wherever they would find the world to be in error, in any shape, in any subject, they said this error is true, just like the king is true. And they continued traveling until they spent everything they had. They sold one horse, and then the second, and then they had sold everything that they had to walk on foot. They had to walk on foot. And they would constantly investigate the world and found the whole world to be in error. They became poor pedestrians and lost their prestige. They were considered as nothing. No one paid any attention to paupers like them. let's take a little break from here. If you take a look at any media, newspapers, television, whatever, you see that everybody has an opinion. And their opinion is always to tell you how somebody else is wrong. A, what is wrong, and B, whose fault it is that it is wrong, and C, if if the world would only listen to them, everything would be okay. What business do you have with other people's wrongs and lies? A person who is steeped in a lie, whose entire life is one big lie, usually finds himself criticizing everybody else and claiming, and not only this, but they're busy investigating why everybody else is wrong and why they're wrong, and what should be and what's the right thing to do. If only the world is a shtickle sechel to listen to them. And if you open up the radio, what do you see here every single hour? Tell the news. What news do they tell you? What is wrong? And whose fault it is that it is wrong? And then they bring proof that whoever say that is wrong is wrong. And usually what they do is as follows. Let's say that the government does something and the government is wrong. Okay? What proof did they bring? They bring somebody who is against the government. I don't know, opposition or whatever. And they interview him. What do you expect the guy to say? You see, he said it's wrong. Now we know that it's wrong. Or they ask somebody from the government to speak, and they say, no, they're right. What do you expect him to say? The funniest thing is when you hear pundits interview either people, politicians that are pro or con, what do you expect them to say? And what business of this or yours of whose fault it is? Why aren't you busy with your own lies? Why aren't you busy with what you do wrong? Because that's the nature of people who live in a lie. They're forever busy with everybody else's real or imagined lies. The actual definition of a fanatic is somebody that is beating al chet on somebody else's chest. That's the definition of a fanatic. It's always somebody else's fault. And not only that, they make a whole career out of this. It's his fault, or it's that fault, or this person's fault. And so they continue, and they get to the as we shall see, when people go like that, constantly searching for people who do things wrong and why they're wrong, they keep on dwindling and dwindling until they lose everything. And he says, and so it happened. They were walking around until they came to the city where the simple prime minister lived. In that city, there was a true master of the name. Now we're talking about the tzaddik emes. That's a whole. That's a whole different level. That's a whole different madrega. The simpler prime minister is because we're talking about a level of tikkun in which the tmimus, the simple, the simplicity, has become, as you know, was ruling the day. Now, the Tam at this point in time has also acquired Chokhmah. But as we learned before, he was using them separately. In other words, when he was leading the Medina, he was using his tmimus. That's it. What's right is right, what's wrong is wrong, and that's it. When he was speaking to the king, then he was using the Chokhmah. Speaking to the king, he used the Chokhmah. You're talking here about tikkunim, about yichudim, about very high avodas. But nevertheless, they're still separate. So separate avodah is tmimus, and separate avodah is b'chokhmah. The true master of the name, the Baal Shem, the true tzaddik, is already somebody that the tmimus and the chokhmah are one. Name is the malchus, master is the chokhmah. The master of the name means he owns the wisdom of the name. Name is tmimus, master is chokhmah. He's both master of the name, he's both chokhmah and tmimus together. He says they came to the city. You know, in that city there was a true master of the name who was held in high esteem because he was a miracle worker. Even among the royalties, he was esteemed and famous. And these clever ones came to that city and walked about and came to the house of the master of the name. And they saw many wagons parked there, 40 or 50, with sick people. And the clever one reasoned that the doctor lived there. And he wanted to go into the house, since he too was a great doctor, and he wanted to go inside and make his acquaintance. And he says, who lives here? They told him, master of the name. He laughed, saying to his friend, this is a lie and an extraordinary mistake. This is even more ridiculous than the mistake about the king. My friend, let me tell you about this lie, how very much the world is so mistaken about this particular lie. People are much more want to have emunah in a Kadosh Baruch Hu, and because having Kadosh Baruch Hu, even a goy can have. That's not a big deal. Shtikl seichel, when this world became on its own, obviously Kadosh Baruch Hu created it. You have to want not to believe in order to believe that Kadosh Baruch Hu did not create the world. As Rabbeinu says, how many things you need to believe in order to believe that in order not to believe in Hashem. But nevertheless, if you have a shtikl seichel, you believe in Kodesh Baruch Hu. Whether you believe that obliges you or you don't believe it obliges you, that's a whole different matter. We say the first thing we say Kriyat Shema. It says Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. Kodesh Baruch Hu is one. He's the beginning of everything. Chad HaPashut. Then he says, Ve'ahavta Hashem Elokecha. That's emunah in Hashem. B'chol avcha, v'chol nafshecha, v'chol modecha. The second parsha says, Vayam Shemati Shmuel Mitzvosai. If you were to listen to my mitzvahs. The Gemara says something ostensibly difficult to understand about this. He says, why do you say Parshas Shema? And afterwards you say Parshas Vayam Shema. says, first you accept upon yourself the yoke of Malchus Shamayim, of the kingdom of heaven, and then you are mekabel upon yourself all mitzvahs. So the reason why this is hard to understand is supposedly they're both one. If you accept upon yourself the Malchut of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Kadosh Baruch Hu is Melech, what does it mean you accept upon yourself? It means that whatever Kadosh Baruch Hu says goes. Whatever Melech says, he's supposed to do. And what does the Melech say? He says the mitzvot. So Lichura, once you're saying that you accept upon yourself all Malchus Shamayim, automatically you accept upon yourself the all mitzvot. If you accept the authority of the Melech, you accept what what the Melech says. It seems like almost like a duh kind of moment. But it's not so. Because it's one thing to believe that the Kadosh Baruch Hu is Melech, and it's quite another to believe that those mitzvot that the Kadosh Baruch Hu is given are nagia to me. Meaning, Kadosh Baruch Hu is talking about me. When he's saying he's supposed to do all these mitzvot, he's talking to me. What's the separation? Why wouldn't I assume that it's nagia to me? Why does the entire world, even the people in the world that believe in Hashem, so what about mitzvot? It's not nagia to us. It's not it's them. Why not? The answer is because they don't believe in themselves. They don't believe that they have any importance. That Hashem, who is the master of everything, has created everything in order for me to do these mitzvot. Now it makes perfect sense. To believe that the Kadosh Baruch Hu created the world is easy. But to believe that He wants me to be Mekayem the mitzvot, that takes emunah to a whole different level. We showed how the clever son falls into chokhmot and falls into apikoros, he falls off the wagon completely, and literally now we see, because it sounds like, who am I that the king should call upon me? Because his own view on himself is so low, who am I? The king should look for me. Such a king that created the entire universe. He wants me to see, should I turn on the light or not turn on the light, to turn a fire, light a fire, not the fire, light a fire on Shabbos. He wants me to do, he cares if I do this or I don't do that. Yeah. And within that particular inyan rests the whole inyan of emunat tzadikim. This is a very deep concept that we need to understand. It is easy to believe in a Kadosh Baruch Hu, and much harder to believe in the tzadikim. Because believing in tzadikim entails believing in yourself. And the process of this logic goes as follows. Why don't I believe in tzadikim? A person doesn't believe in tzadikim because he doesn't believe that if you do things, what the HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants from you, it changes you. It makes something else out of you. The question is, what does it make of you? Take the fact alone, Kadosh Baruch Hu has created the world, heaven, earth, and everything, fruits, animals that we are allowed to eat, water that we drink. Incredible world. And everything was created for Am Yisrael and for the Torah, and for Am Yisrael to keep the Torah. This is it. So if an entity that can do absolutely everything, literally everything, and creates a whole world for the purpose of you doing what he says. And if you do what he says, he is going to give you a schar. What kind of a schar does an entity that can do anything and give anything would give to somebody who is mekayim the reason why the world was created? What's the biggest prize? The biggest prize is that you yourself will become godly. The world goes around and they see that people are animals, big animals, small animals, more clever animals, more dumb animals, whatever it is, but they're all animals. You take all the animals in the world, put them together, all the gorillas and all the whatever, the most incredibly sophisticated animals, all of them don't compare to a single person's intelligence. A single person, I don't care where he's from. Take the most primitive person in the world. I couldn't, if it's in, I don't know, Brajani from Australia or I don't know. Take the simplest person in the world, all the animals, billions upon billions of animals and creatures don't amount to one person. That in itself ought to tell you something is going on here. And all this was created for you to keep the mitzvot. The world looks at the world at large, the world that lives in Olam Hazeh, the Goyish world, and whoever it is that lives like them. They live in a reality in which the man is the human animal. It's an animal, a person is an animal, but it's a human animal. And as such it is able to do incredible things and to write music and to paint and to write whatever and philosophize to no end. But it ultimately all remains Olam Hazeh. The Kadosh Baruch Hu has created the world for you, not for you to be the human animal, but in order for you to make the human manifestation of Hashem. You look like a person. You look like a person. You look like a man. You're not different than anybody, physically, anatomically. You just, when people look at you on the outside, you almost never see any difference between somebody who's good, somebody's bad. Okay, maybe you can see differences, whatever it is, or of a person, but you can't see what a person really is. Rabbeinu says, encapsulates it all in one sikha that we learn, Sikha Saran. Rabbeinu says that an Elech Hayid, a kosher Jew, let alone a tzaddik, looks just like everybody else. Physically, the same kind of organs of everybody else. But is something else entirely. And how opaque is this definition? He is something else entirely. What? I have no idea. But I know bevadai. The Kodesh Baruch Hu is so great that if I make a bracha on a candy, I change. Feeling wise, I don't feel anything different. I don't feel any different. I feel the same as I always did. Physically, I definitely don't change. But spiritually, on the level that I can't even grab, because feelings are not facts. Feelings are they make a great impression on you. If you don't feel good, you don't feel good. If you feel bad, you feel really bad, whatever. But they do not reflect what the fact is. The people that know that I'm aware of this more than anybody else, we have two psychologists here. The people that are aware more than anybody else are people who are addicted to various behaviors and substances. One of the first tenets that they hold by that can sort of lead them to reason is that feelings are not facts. They're feelings. They're real feelings. But it's not fact. Just because that you feel bad about something doesn't mean that that's the truth. Doesn't mean the situation is bad. It means that you feel bad. Okay. Feelings are very crude instruments. Except for crude instruments, okay. It's very potent. You can feel things. Whatever, people are more sensitive. Whatever it is, but it's a crude. It's not a spiritual instrument. It's an emotional instrument. So with your feelings, you can feel Kedusha. Sometimes there is a revelation. There's a ha'ora, there's an enlightenment that the Kodesh Baruch Hu does a favor to a person and he shows him something. The whole inyan of Emunah tzadikim rests upon Emunah in this fact. When you do anything, we're not even talking about mitzvahs, but anything that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants, you change. You understand very well that the minute that the person, let's say, lies, lo aleinu, he becomes a liar. A person who lo aleinu kills is a murderer. He can do tshuva on it, but he does not become ois murderer. If a person keeps on stealing, he's a thief. It changes him. This we can see practically with our own eyes. But when a person does mitzvot, the change that it creates in them is almost imperceptible, at least in the beginning. It takes some time, then you can feel the difference. And B is totally based on emunah in HaKadosh Baruch Hu and emunah in yourself. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you believe in him, and he gave you the Torah and the mitzvot, and you believe that he wants it from you. And because it's a Kodesh Baruch Hu who can do anything, who does everything, who told you to do this, when you do this, the one who was chosen to do it, the one who was created to do it, when you do it, you change. What kind of change is that? You become godlier. And we cannot even define this. What does it mean to become godlier? I have no idea. We don't have the definition for it, and we cannot touch it and define it any more than we can put our hands into our brains and touch a thought. It's beyond our pay grade. That is the source of Emunah tzadikim. A tzadik, who is somebody like you, who kept on doing and just quote unquote, made a career out of doing everything that Kodesh Baruch Hu wants him to do and nothing else. What he has done, he has stripped upon him from himself that the coarseness of the body, and he's totally manifestation of the godly, a walking human manifestation of godliness. That's Moshe Rabbeinu. The Medrash puts it in a very, almost like, how shall I say? It was a poetic or schematic way. This is Moshe Isha Elokim. Moshe is the man of God. What is the man of God? The Medrash says, almost like in a clumsy language, one half of him is godly, one half of him is Ish, is a person. What does it mean? He means it's HaKadosh Baruch Hu walking as a person. There is no person there anymore. Because a person is defined with his ratzon. A person who wants good is good, a person who wants bad is bad. Because a person who wants bad things, he does bad things. If he wants bad things, he does bad things. He does bad things, he becomes a bad person. A person who wants good things, does good things, and he becomes a good person. A person who wants godly things becomes godly. This emunah is the subtlest of all emunas, and everything depends on that. The Gemara says, "Lo nivra kol haolam kulo, ela letzavet leze." The entire world was created in order to accompany the tzaddik. The Ramchal says in Derech Hashem, he says that the main cause, that the reason why a person was born is in order to be a tzaddik, to be to Gan Eden. And he says, and there's another way for those who aren't capable of doing, of being tzadikim, is to accompany tzadikim. And he goes on and is explaining what kind of, he says that when a person accompanies himself to the tzaddik, he is zoicha to the Gan Eden of that tzaddik. That's what the Ramchal says. And what about the tzaddik? He's the one that brings everybody in? The answer is that person that comes together with the tzaddik is not really up to snuff. So the tzaddik takes upon himself to fix him, and he's suffering for him. He doesn't suffer everything that person was supposed to suffer, but just a little bit for all the people that come to him. That's a basic principle. And because of that Yisurim that he accepted upon himself, all the people of the tzaddik get the original Olam Haba that the tzaddik was supposed to get, and the tzaddik gets a higher Olam Haba because of his Mesiras Nefesh to suffer for all the people who are together with him. That's what the Ramchal says. Obviously, the Goyim took this to a whole different level. And again, being people of Olam Hazeh, this is no, forget about it. It can't be, a human person, forget about it. I don't even want to talk about the shtiyot. But that's the principle. And since then, the biggest damage that they did was not the fact that they killed all the Jews that they did throughout generations. It's the fact that they sullied and they corrupted the notion of tzaddik. They put into Am Yisrael this inyan of, if you believe in a tzaddik, maybe you're pagan, maybe you're like them. In other words, they took a bite out of the apple and they left their spit on the place of the bite. Obviously, for the Chacham, for the clever son, this is the biggest lie of them all. You have even a bigger lie than the king. Why is it a bigger lie than the king? because that's paganism. The main milchama is to believe in tzadikim. Believing in HaKadosh Baruch Hu is easy. And the good thing is, you don't have to keep your hand on the pulse to find out where your Emunah tzadikim is holding. You have to want to believe in tzadikim. Ask HaKadosh Baruch Hu to shine to you the light, the light from the tzaddik. You want to believe in tzaddikim, and that creates a reaction from the tzaddik. The light starts coming back to you. Don't leave the ratzon to believe in tzaddikim, and the light will come to you. Eventually, it'll fill you up. B'ezrat Hashem, we will stop here. And in Yirtzeh Hashem on Wednesday, we are learning Likutei Moharan, Torah Chav Gimel. Thursday we learn Torah Mem Tes. In Yirtzeh Hashem, tomorrow, let me just stop this.